here at Meta Unshackled. Pleased to be joined by a really cool individual that we've met on our travels throughout the world and country, and pleased to be bringing him to you here digitally. I'm having my first cup of unbitch yourself coffee, but Revelry. It's great branding, great brand coming out of Arizona. So, Brett, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dimitri. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you again. When was the last time we saw each other?
Benzinga, Chicago.
It was a
You
show.
guys had me up on. Yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That's like our ESPN game day style approach to interviewing people. We like that, you know?
Yeah, I like the big headsets you guys bring out. It's a fun vibe for the guests.
Yeah, except for I've noticed that ESPN has evolved to these really fancy micro headsets that are like barely visible, or like the 80s version of the ESPN game day. So you are the managing partner of CannaBIZ Collects.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yep. Managing partner since 2017.
Okay, cool. There's a little bit of a tiny delay here. It's all right. Tell us about what CannaBIZ Collects is.
Now, CannaBIZ Collects is the nation's first and leading cannabis debt collection agency. So we essentially help clients across the country recoup very tough AR that their teams can't collect themselves. And if anyone's doing business in cannabis now, I'm sure you can imagine it's becoming one of the most challenging aspects of doing business in the cannabis industry today, trying to get your bills paid up on time. And that's where we step in and try to help.
So where'd you come from? You were one of the OGs from Colorado before you switched into collections.
More or less, yeah. It was honestly the first job I took out of college. I moved out to Aspen, Colorado to help assist the CEO of a cannabis company in the western slope of Colorado, right next to Aspen. We actually had the very first recreational licensed dispensary in the western slope, and we raised about $20 million to build out a vertical operation, including a 45,000 square foot grow, processing, and then we actually bought another dispensary over the years. And long story short, the CEO I was working for got sick early on and had to leave Colorado, and the board promoted me to CEO after about 6 months of working there. And I had about 60 employees to manage, and that's where I kind of saw the ins and outs and issues around collections in the cannabis space back in 2015, 2016.
And so you left doing that and did you start CannaBIZ Collects or with your other partners and stuff? Or
yeah, it's actually interesting. So one day my dad texts me and he's like, Brett, I'm so bored. I can't figure out what to do anymore with my life, because about 2 years before he sold his law firm and collection agency. So my dad was a commercial collection attorney for about 30 years, had a big firm, always wanted me to take over his collection agency. And I was like, why the hell would I ever take over a collection agency? That's like the least sexy business ever.
Right.
And now I'm in the cannabis industry, managing all these people and producing all these cool products. Next thing you know, that same day, my tasks for the day was to try to reduce our AR amounts from our cannabis company in Colorado. So I was making collection calls to dispensaries throughout the whole day and getting zero traction. And I got so frustrated that a light bulb went off and said, there's no way we're the only ones right now having this problem. This was early, 2015, 2016 in Colorado. This is going to be a massive issue in cannabis because nobody's making proper credit decisions. We didn't have a credit department. Our sales team was just basically extending, net credit terms when they were asked. So I called my dad later that night and I said, Dad, I got a great idea. You're getting out of retirement and we're starting the nation's first cannabis collection agency.
Oh, that actually is pretty cool. I don't think I could ever work with what my dad does. But that's not because it's my dad. Just that his subject matter doesn't interest me. But so AR, accounts receivable, obviously, for those of you who might not know, I didn't know that when I was prosecuting. I learned that in 2012 when I started in the cannabis industry, what AR is. So it's a very important thing. So you've worked with lots of people since 2015, 16.
Yeah, we started the firm in 2017 and we've grown, very slow, steady, in a sense that we're basically taking on state by state. The more advanced the state, typically the more issues that they're having with collections. But since inception, we've represented close to 1,000 different companies in the cannabis space, from the largest MSOs in the country down to mom and pop growers in Humboldt County. Really anyone that's having issues, and it's either direct plant touching businesses that are selling into retail or are having issues between, let's say, growers and lab testing, all the way to the ancillary providers from recruiting agencies, accounting firms, marketing agencies. Anyone that's servicing into the industry are also having this problem, because it's really a trickle effect that's affecting and plaguing this entire space.
And what makes CannaBIZ Collections, you touched on a couple points, but how is it, what makes it unique? You know, it's actually, I mean, I want to journey off into my stories about how I created a cannabis credit score in Arizona and how receiverships and stuff. And but let's talk about this. What makes collecting it more? Give us more in depth as to why it's unique.
Okay, I'll start with the reason why it's unique in a challenge perspective, and the reason why it's becoming such a big issue in our industry, and then maybe talk about the uniqueness of kind of our collection approach. It's unique in cannabis because, as we all know, banking is an issue, and there's not proper credit management and credit scoring being done industry-wide for an array of different reasons. But there's not good enough data being shared, and no one's really in the habit of sharing data. So if you try to pull a D&B report or Equifax, you're not going to get any kind of real credit scores. More so, there's not a lot. I mean, most of our clients don't have a full, the resources to have a credit department. So no one's even doing basic credit checks or even checking references against companies. They're really just trusting their salespeople to make a deal happen. And I think the industry is slowly understanding that there's a big difference between a sale and cash flow. And that's really been the uniqueness of the issues, where, because there's not a lot of banks providing operating capital to cannabis companies, most of these companies are kind of forced to figure out how to extend trade credit between themselves in order to increase sales and increase kind of the order size of different products and services. Now, because of that influx of issues, the uniqueness of collections in our particular firm, of how we can maybe work more effectively than a large firm or a more traditional firm, is, number one, we know the industry. We know the players in the industry. We know how to communicate in this industry. If we're seeing contracts every day that sometimes are on a napkin, but sometimes are very formal language. However, they're including, verbiage such as trim trade agreements and extraction equipment and things that maybe a traditional firm would have no idea what the hell we're talking about or what metric is. Mm-hmm. These are the things that are very important when it comes to negotiating and sounding professional in this industry, as we all know, doing business in cannabis. I think our biggest competitive advantage is, since we've been around since 2017, we've processed over $90 million of debt through our agency. That's close to 5,500 individual claims against debtors. So when we are getting a claim now from a company, there's a pretty good chance we've had experience with that same debtor in the past. So we know who to get in touch with, the context of the situation, how to speak to these particular individuals, versus a standard firm that's got maybe 100 collectors on their collection floor that are working all types of different industries and different paper. They don't know who's who. Our advantage is we know exactly what's going on in every state, and we know who kind of the bad actors are that we need to either escalate to legal quicker, or basically knowing how to communicate with these folks versus others that wouldn't know how to do so.
No, you got me sold. I'm thinking to myself, some big ancient collections agency is going to pick you up so they can enter into the cannabis space one day, because you guys have that understanding, the nuances, uniqueness, the expertise, because it is still mysterious to like the big corporate players out there that haven't necessarily touched it. So I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. Congratulations on all your success. I had a couple quick questions. I want to hear some stories about like the most difficult and challenging collections. That we'll get to that in 1 second. But first of all, you said $90 million. Is that amount that you've been tasked to collect, and how much have you collected of that?
Yeah, 90 million. It's around 90 to 92 million now, which has been processed through our agency. With that, I think we're close to about 12 to 15 million dollars in total collected amounts. And those success rates, you can't, a lot of time people come to us and they'll go to agencies, what's your success rate? Right. Well,
Right.
we've gotten $2 million claims, single individual claims for 2 million bucks on companies that are out of business, that they're totally uncollectible and there's no chance to collect. So, there's a lot of outliers around stats and statistics around collection efforts, from collectible amounts versus processed. But big picture, we're probably trailing towards close to 12, $13 million since inception on collected amounts. And what we're seeing now is the newer states and the East Coast are becoming more of a problem area than ever before, such as Michigan, Massachusetts. We're getting a lot more claim volume in these states that we would consider quality claims, because these claims are actually more collectible than in states like California, where we're seeing the same debtors over and over and over again. Everyone's hearing stories about the herbal situation and these other debtors that are basically drowning in debt and aren't paying anybody anything. So we're looking into new markets while also doing our best to manage and oversee some of these older debtors that might not be in business for very long.
Are you working on the herbal situation?
We are not. We're not actively working on the herbal situation.
Do you work with receivers and work in those kind of situations?
Yeah. In this firm to date, we haven't worked directly with receivers as of today. Because it's just starting to happen more and more. We're connected with many receivers in the industry, and it's something that, could be an opportunity. But
I have some business for you. This morning, I was getting a text about a certain thing. I have a $7 million claim that, well, let's just say that's I can't break any NDAs, but that's close to the amount that's owed to somebody. And it's probably about 60 different dispensaries owe it in a certain state that you might have mentioned or not. So we'll get to that. Do you buy debt?
We do not buy debt, and I wouldn't recommend anyone in their right mind to be buying cannabis debt today, even if you're getting a ridiculous discount, because the risk is so insanely high. So if you see anyone factoring debt, let me know. And I'll tell you why, because we would never factor debt until there's proper credit scoring and diligence done on the paper itself, right? Without actual risk profiling on some of these debtors, you're literally shooting blind to go make an investment in an AR portfolio, where in cannabis, it's harder than almost any other industry to try to collect money from some of these people, because many of them still deal in cash. They, a lot of them don't have bank accounts. It's just extremely challenging. So I think I talked to you about this in Chicago, but one of the big pushes that we're making towards is credit scoring and credit insights and credit solutions in the cannabis industry. So we actually spun off something called the CannaBIZ Credit Association, the CCA, which is the very first credit platform for the cannabis industry, nationwide. And the Cannabis Credit Association, the CCA's whole mission is to incentivize the sharing of data freely between members in the cannabis industry, so we could finally understand together how to protect ourselves before going into business with a new engagement. And also, it's really helpful for pre-collection. If you have an issue that you're dealing with, should you be sending it to collections now? Should you be thinking about escalating to legal? So, we launched this platform a couple months ago. We're, acquiring members every single day. And the whole mission and the goal is in the next 6 months or so, we're going to have the very first credit scores in the industry with sharing across all states. The entire industry will finally be more or less of what you would call like the next BBB for the cannabis industry.
Wow, that's pretty good. I wonder how META, we should definitely continue our talks about working together on that, because our goal is to be more of a, associations can do anything from advocacy to promotion to business development to networking and stuff. And we want to be more business development oriented, than advocacy oriented. So that would fall right in line with our underlying mission.
Yeah, a big push for us is partnering up with the major associations across the country and figuring out how to incentivize your members to do better business. Period. How can we help you and your members make better credit decisions? Our whole things that we stand by is trust, transparency, and transformation. So how can we really be involved with players like yourselves and help all of your members say, wait a second, let's take a break before we keep doing new business.
You mentioned you have like 10 employees. But what are some good collection stories? What are your like greatest successes? What if you had to like rank like the top three interesting or most unusual or best success stories? What comes to mind? What do you tell your grandkids about?
The first thing, I mean, I'm going to use more abstract stories just because like you said, I don't do the direct collections myself. One day I would love to have one of our collectors or my partner on the call and talk directly about some of the things that are said to them on these phone calls, because they can get pretty aggressive and they're actually pretty funny with regards to stories. I I think for me, when I have grandkids one day and I'm telling them about the experience of building this business, the funniest thing is when we're at these expos and we have debtors come up to our booth, shake our hand, and thank us for helping them pay their bill. And it's always just like very strange. It was like they needed our demand letters and our communication to come up and be like, yo guys, I really want to thank you so much for helping me resolve this issue and paying our bills in this industry. Which for me, it's like, well, you could have just paid your bill when our client asked you to pay. But they actually come with such a sense of joy for the work that we did, which was always kind of confusing for me during these expos, but also extremely rewarding in a sense of like, okay, well, they're happy with the work that we did on the other side. And it kind of goes along with, sometimes we deal with debtors that actually refer us business, where we've got like 10 or 11 clients after them for money, and they owe maybe, let's say, 30 different clients money. And they're like, hey, CannaBIZ Collects, you need to talk to company A, B, C, D, and E, because they actually are all owed money from our same group also. And it'd be way easier if we just dealt with you than having to deal with all them individually. So, I mean, these stories aren't like horror stories or kind of like collection stories, but it's more about just the interesting things that shock me sometimes while doing this job versus, I think, standard collections in traditional industries. I don't think that's the same type of vibe that they're getting. And it's still this kind of like close network, young industry where people are trying to work together. We have met a lot of like debtors that really are trying to work themselves out of an issue. And for me, it just shocks me the most when these debtors are happy to hear from us and, appreciate the work we're doing to get them to pay their bills, which is kind of mind blowing for me sometimes.
And what's that little thumbs up thing? Is that you, Eric?
Yeah.
Eric, we need to get Eric
Yeah.
a mic. He's like Ed McMahon over here without a mic.
Yeah. Does that mean like good job or like stop talking?
I'm not sure. I've never seen it before. But I was going to ask. Okay, so it's mostly like A&R, and I use A&R like. Anyways, it's mostly A&R. But do you ever get like investors that call you and say, "Hey, this is a debt. These guys owe me $1 million, $2 million, $3 million," and maybe you just say, "Hey, you go hire a lawyer." But do they ever call you and you work with them, or can you help them at all? Because I mean, there's all kinds of investors
Absolutely.
that have been screwed.
Absolutely. Yeah. We work with a variety of different investment groups or even like real estate capital groups. something I didn't mention is if we're not able to collect as a collection agency, we have one of the strongest legal networks in the country to refer business to our associate counsel to litigate. So we're litigating cases every day from California, Michigan, Colorado. We got some of the best attorneys in every state, and we're managing the legal network to actually litigate on purely a contingency basis. So if we can't collect for one of our clients and we need to litigate a $1 million file, we send that out to our associate counsel, and we manage, all the communication and make sure that they're working effectively on the file. And our clients don't pay anything unless, we or our associate counsel is successful. So yeah, we get those all the time. But usually the larger dollars, as you can imagine, are typically the less collectible amounts. When someone is owed $1 million or $2 million, there's a reason for that. And yeah, big time settlements will happen. But what we're seeing now in cannabis is usually these placements are happening too late. People are placing their accounts 6 months, 9 months, 12 months too late after it goes past due. And the chance of success is going down dramatically because, these companies are already drowning in debt, are probably going to go out of business. We're seeing cannabis companies go out of business at alarming rates, where what's most important for the industry is to place accounts after 90 days, that's it. Having an SOP and placing an account for collections once it goes old versus trying to be the nice guy because you'll finish last.
Jesus, do I have the ultimate deal for you? Yeah, deal. I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, my God, as soon as this ends, I'm excited to talk to you about this opportunity, because every single one of the 60 debts on that sheet, that A&R sheet, is under $1 million.
Yeah. That's that. Well, I'm excited to talk to you too, D.
Yes, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it after the podcast. But what else?
Yeah.
What else do you want people to know about you? I mean, obviously, you're an extremely knowledgeable guy, and I'm going to recommend you to some of my receiver friends and some other individuals that I know, so they have your phone number on speed dial. But when do people reach out to you? How about that? Like when is it? When is the time to call you? I mean, they're going to be making all the efforts, spending man hours, putting their manager on it, putting their C-suite on it, kind of stuff. But when do people say, fuck it, I got to call CannaBIZ Collects?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question because I don't get it enough. I mean, you need to escalate an account to collections when the account is yeah, that's a good one. After 90 days, you got to send the account to collections, because unless you have a true payment arrangement that's in writing, or you have real serious communication with the debtor, if they're ignoring you after 90 days, send the account to collections and call us. I would also say, even if you're within that 90 days and you're starting to see a large, receivable balance grow, we're always happy. Our team is always happy to talk about policies and procedures, to try to help our clients figure out something that makes sense to them and their business, because there's not one size fits all. It all depends on your cash flow and kind of the amount of liquidity you have in your company to be able to, let's say, extend 90 days, 120 days past due. But at the end of the day, if an account's past 90 days old and they're not talking to you in this industry, there's really no reason why you should just be holding on to it unless you've got a payment arrangement in place.
Yeah, I'm trying to think right now who I owe money to. I think
over 90.
No, I don't really owe anybody any money. I just there have been a couple of deals over the years that have, there's no real financial debt, but there's more of that didn't end well for them, so I owe them something spiritually. So I'm not sure how do you collect that too?
On spiritual debt? And that'd be a new service to offer, spiritual debt.
I wonder if God has a collection agency. You know what I'm saying? It's called Karma.
Very wealthy.
No, but that's like he's not actively involved. Karma is bigger than God. Or maybe karma is God. Well, whatever. That's another question. So awesome. So when are you going to be at MJBizCon?
We'll be at MJBizCon. Yeah.
Okay,
we'll be there exhibiting.
We will. Are you exhibiting?
Yeah.
Where's your booth number?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll post it somewhere.
Yeah, well, this will go out before MJBizCon, so we're gonna make it like an MJBizCon preview thing, like meet these kind of people at MJBizCon, so it's cool.
Perfect.
People come by and say hi. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you more. I know we met before in Chicago, but our audience, everybody who's seeing this will probably presumably be seeing it for the first time, unless somebody's really hung up on you, just really interested in just watching it over and over and over again.
I mean, kind of odd, but I respect it.
No, it is. You're a good-looking guy. You dress well. Who knows?
It's a little cold out, so I'm wearing a jacket inside.
The logo can be hypnotizing.
Well, I appreciate it, and I think at MJBiz, if you stop by our booth, which I don't have on the top of my head now, the big mission for us is to really promote the CCA, the Cannabis Credit Association, and try to bring on as many members to share their data and help move this industry forward. So if you come by MJBiz, come check out CannaBIZ Collects booth, and we'll give you a demo of what we're doing on this platform. You can go to CannaBizCredit.com. It's pretty revolutionary, and I think the entire industry is going to benefit, through and through from having this data insight that we haven't had before.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave it there, and we look forward to hanging out with you at MJBizCon. Stop by the Elevation Networking Lounge, and thank you. This has been another great. Thank you, CannaBIZ Collects managing partner. That's great. And Brett, thank you. And we will see you at MJBizCon. This has been another episode of Meat Unshackled.
Thanks so much, D. Booth 6423, just got it.
Oh, you got it. Look at that. He's got like helpers in the background.
It just got it.
I think you might be near us. Well, we'll figure it out.
All right, no worries. Thanks a lot.